The first time Officer Derek Cole realized he'd messed with the wrong woman, she was already sitting across from him in an internal affairs interview room, calm as a still lake, while his own bodycam footage played on the screen behind her. He watched himself on the screen, leaning into her car window, veins bulging in his neck, spitting words he couldn't take back. "Step out of the car. Now, don't make me ask again." On the video, you could hear her voice, steady, tired, and just a little trembling. "Officer, I've already given you my license. Why are you yelling at me?" In the real room, she didn't say a word. She just watched him. The black woman he'd shoved, humiliated, threatened on the side of the road, was now sitting here, in a navy blazer and a cream blouse, next to the captain of internal affairs. And when the door opened, and Chief Samuel Harris walked in, not as a husband, but as the highest-ranking officer in the department, Derek's stomach dropped. Because in that moment, he realized the truth. The woman he treated like she was nothing was the chief's wife, and the whole police station. They were about to find out exactly what kind of man Derek really was. If you're listening right now, put yourself in that room for a second. Imagine being Derek. Imagine thinking you're untouchable, and then the people you've worked with for years are about to watch your worst side on repeat. But to understand how they all got here, the chief, his wife, the corrupt cop, and an entire station about to be shaken, you have to go back. Back to a quiet afternoon, before the complaints, before the video, before the shock, before one bad choice pulled the mask off everyone. Eastwood wasn't a big city, but it wasn't small either. It was the kind of place where people knew the name of the police chief but might not know their neighbor across the hall. Chief Samuel Harris had worked 26 years to earn his badge, his rank, and his reputation. He was tall, dark-skinned, broad-shouldered, and carried himself like someone who had seen enough loss to understand the value of restraint. He was the department's first black police chief. That meant he walked a tightrope every day, between the community that watched him with hope and the officers who watched him with suspicion, waiting to see if he was one of them or one of us. And then there was his wife, Dr. Maya Harris, clinical psychologist, community advocate, black woman, soft-spoken, but absolutely not weak. She was the kind of woman who listened more than she talked. But when she decided to speak, people shut up. Her hair was usually in long, neat twists tied back from her face. Her eyes were warm, but sharp. The kind of sharp that cut through excuses and hit straight at the truth. She'd grown up in the very neighborhoods people whispered about, the bad side of town, those blocks, that zip code. She knew what it felt like to be watched in a store for no reason, to be pulled over for a broken taillight that somehow fixed itself later, to be told to calm down when she was already quiet. She married Samuel because, under everything, he still believed the badge could mean something good. "Somebody has to be on the inside," he told her, once, when they were still dating. "Someone who remembers what it's like to be on the other side of that glass." She had studied him for a long moment and replied, "Then don't you dare forget it, Sam." They made a good team, even if their lives were complicated. She worked at a community counseling center where teenagers came in wild-eyed, angry, broken, or numb, and she listened to them until they found words again. He ran a department where those same teenagers, a few years older, sometimes ended up in cuffs. At home, over late dinners and cold pizza, they argued, they debated, they shared stories. "You don't understand how hard it is out there," he would say, rubbing a hand over his face. "My officers are exhausted, undertrained, and outnumbered. They're human. And the people they pull guns on aren't." Maya would shoot back, "You are not the only ones who are human in this equation, Sam." They loved each other, fiercely, but they lived in tension. Between duty and community, between badge and skin, between what should be and what was. Now let's talk about the man who thought he could get away with anything. Officer Derek Cole had been on the force for 8 years. He was 35, white, with a buzz cut that looked like it had been done in anger, a jaw that always seemed clenched, and eyes that never quite softened, even when he smiled. If you met him on a good day, you might not think much of him. He was polite enough, quick with a joke, knew how to say yes, sir, and no, in all the right places. He shook hands with politicians at community barbecues. He posed for pictures with kids at the annual Shop with a Cup event. He nodded along in trainings about bias, de-escalation, mental health. But on bad days, Derek was what the community called one of those cops. He was the one who rolled his eyes when someone mentioned racism, the one who muttered under his breath during de-escalation training, or we could just tell them to comply the first time. He was the one who called a neighborhood a zoo and thought nobody heard. But people did hear. They always do. He had complaints. Too many. Unprofessional behavior. Unnecessary force. Rude and disrespectful language. Improper search. Nothing big enough to fire him, according to the old culture inside the department. Enough to talk to him. Enough to warn him. But not enough to remove him. Well, that's what they told themselves. He had learned the skill that keeps a certain kind of cop working for years. How to dance right on the edge of the policy line without technically stepping over it. How to write his reports with just enough detail and just enough vagueness. How to use words like non-compliant and appeared aggressive to code his behavior in professional-sounding justification. Chief Harris had sat across from Derek more than once. Officer Cole, he had told him in his office one day, a year before everything blew up, if I see one more citizen complaint with your name on it, we're going to have a serious problem. You understand me? Derek had nodded, but his eyes had gone hard and flat. Yes, Chief. Understood. But what he really heard was, you've been untouchable this long. They're not going to sacrifice you now. Because when he looked around, he didn't see real consequences. He saw paperwork. He saw meetings. He saw other officers shrugging and saying things like, hey, Derek's rough around the edges, but he gets the job done. Some people just don't like cops. They'll complain about anything. We got to have each other's backs, man. That blew all. Yeah, it was very real. And then came the night he pulled over a black SUV at 11:23 p.m. on Maple and 9th. He thought it was just another stop. He thought it was another chance to feel powerful on a slow shift. He had no idea who was behind the wheel. It was a Tuesday night. The kind of night where the streets are quiet, but you can feel the leftover tension of the day hanging in the air. At the community center, Dr. Maya Harris had just wrapped up a late support group for mothers who had lost sons to violence, some to the streets, some to police encounters gone wrong. She had listened to story after story of grief, anger, confusion. Sometimes I see an officer and I want to spit on the ground, one woman had admitted through tears. And I know your husband is a chief, Dr. Harris, and I respect you, but I can't help how I feel. Maya had nodded, pain in her own eyes. You're allowed to feel that, she said softly. Feelings are not crimes. What matters is what you do with them, and what we build from them. By the time she locked up, it was late. Her shoulders ached. Her head was buzzing. She wanted to go home, take off her shoes, lean against Samuel's chest, and just exhale. She drove her black SUV through familiar streets, barely noticing the flickering streetlights, the faint music from an open window, the couple arguing on a corner, the stray cat slipping into an alley. She did notice the police cruiser pulling behind her, though. The headlights. The closing distance. She glanced at her speed. 35 and a 30. Not perfect, but not exactly wild. She eased down on the gas a little, staying right on the line. Then the lights flashed. Red and blue, slicing through the night. Seriously, she muttered, heart thudding. What now? If you've ever been pulled over, you know that feeling. Right? Even if you did nothing wrong, your stomach tightens. Your palms get sweaty. Your breathing changes. Now add decades of stories. Add your own lived experience. Add the color of your skin. She signaled, pulled over to the nearest safe spot, and put the car in park. Her hands went where her mother had taught her years ago, both clearly visible on the steering wheel. The officer approached, body cam on, hand resting on the butt of his gun out of habit, or out of habit plus something else. He knocked on her window with 2 hard taps. She rolled it down halfway. Good evening, officer, she said, her voice calm and clear. License and registration, he said. No greeting. No explanation. She blinked. Can I ask why I'm being stopped? He exhaled sharply through his nose, as if that question personally offended him. I'll explain once I see your documents. There it was. That edge. Her pulse kicked up. For a moment, she considered saying, my husband is Chief Harris, just to make this easier. But something in her pulled back. No. How did other women get treated? The ones who didn't have a chief or a husband. Did they get this tone too? She reached slowly into her purse, narrating her movements like she taught teenagers in her workshops. I'm reaching into my bag for my wallet, she said, hands moving deliberately. Just hurry up. It's late, he snapped. She flinched at the sharpness, but she didn't rush. She handed him her license. Registration is in the glove compartment, she said. He took her license and stepped back a little, shining his flashlight in her face, then into the car, then onto the back seat. You got any weapons in the car? He asked. No, she replied. Just me. He made a noise that could have been a scoff. Keep your hands where I can see them. I'll be right back. He walked back to his cruiser, license in hand. In the glow of his dash, his face was lit up in cold blue light as he typed her name into the system. Name, Maya Harris. Address, the house in the nicer part of town. No outstanding warrants. Clean record. He didn't notice the last name. Or if he did, he didn't connect it to the man whose plaque hung in the lobby of his station. Or maybe, deep down, he just didn't care. Back in the SUV, Maya took a slow breath. Her heart was pounding faster than she liked. She'd counseled so many people through panic, through trauma. She knew the drills. In, 2, 3, out, 2, 3, she whispered to herself. Then she remembered something she told other people all the time. If you feel unsafe, record. Not to provoke. To protect yourself. To have a record of what really happened. Her stomach turned at the idea. She didn't want to. She didn't want to believe she might need to. But she set her phone up in the cup holder anyway, angled so it could see her, the window, and whatever came next. She hit record. Derek walked back up to the car, flashlight in one hand, license in the other. He leaned down so his face was level with her window. All right, Mrs. Harris, he said, the missus coming out with a hint of sarcasm. You know why I pulled you over tonight? You tell me, she answered. His jaw flexed. You were speeding, and you swerved back there when you made that last turn. I don't believe I was speeding, officer, she said, careful with her words. And the road back there's a big pothole. I moved around it. Maybe that's what you saw. Are you arguing with me? He asked, voice rising. I'm just explaining, she replied. I was under the speed limit. He chuckled, but there was no humor in it. You know, every driver I've ever pulled over was under the speed limit, he said. Funny how that works. She could feel it. The power game. The need to assert control. I'm not trying to give you a hard time, she said. I just want to understand. What you need to do is cooperate, he snapped. Have you been drinking tonight? No, she said. I was working late. Where do you work? He shot back, fast. At a counseling center on 14th and Pine, she answered. A counseling center, he repeated, like it was a lie. He sniffed, leaning closer, as if smelling for alcohol. I'm going to ask you to step out of the vehicle, he said suddenly. Her heart dropped. Why? She asked, trying to keep her voice steady. His eyes hardened. Because I'm investigating a possible DUI, he said. Step out. Now. She swallowed. With respect, officer, I just told you I haven't been drinking. I'm tired. That's all. Is there a reason for a sobriety test? He straightened up, anger flaring. Yes, there's a reason. Because I said so. Get out of the car. Her breathing picked up. In the video, later, you could see her glancing quickly at the phone, checking that it was still recording. Okay, she said quietly. I'm going to unbuckle my seatbelt now, and then I'll open the... Stop narrating every move. He cut in. You're not in a movie. She flinched again, but she unbuckled, opened the door carefully, and stepped out onto the cold asphalt. He made her walk the line. He made her follow his pen with her eyes. He made her stand on one foot. She did everything. Slowly, carefully, correctly. And still, he kept pushing. You're swaying, he said. It's cold, she replied. And I'm tired. But I'm not drunk. He took a step closer, towering over her. He wasn't huge, but in that moment, with a uniform and the gun in the silence of the street, he felt enormous. You know I could take you in right now, he said quietly. Impound the car. Get your blood drawn. Make this a long night. Something snapped inside her. She looked him dead in the eye. For what? She asked. Existing. His face twisted. What's your tone? He growled. And what's yours? She shot back before she could stop herself. That was when he did it. The thing he later tried to downplay in his report. The thing that looked different on the body cam than it did in his head. He grabbed her arm. Hard. Not enough to throw her to the ground, but enough to yank her toward him. Enough to make her stumble. Enough to leave bruises that would bloom purple by morning. You don't get to talk to me like that, he said through clenched teeth. You understand me. Let go of me, she said, her voice shaking now. You're hurting me. He held on for a second longer than he should have. Then he let go, shoving her arm away like she was the problem. If you don't want this to get worse, you will stand right there. You will stay quiet. And you will let me do my job, he hissed. She stayed at him, chest heaving. I am standing here, she said softly. I am not resisting. I have done everything you asked. There was a long, heavy pause. Even on the body cam, you could feel it. Then, as if some part of him remembered he was being recorded, he stepped back. You know what? He muttered. I'm going to give you a break tonight. But next time, show some respect and don't argue with the police. Get back in your car and wait till I tell you you can leave. She stayed at him, incredulous. A break, she repeated. You hurt me and now you're back in the car, he said, louder. Her eyes were hot with tears she refused to let fall. She got back in the car, closed the door, sat there shaking. When he finally walked up again with her license in his hand, he leaned down and said, in a voice just barely picked up by the MIC, women like you are always looking for trouble. Don't go filing some fake complaint because you didn't like being told what to do. She looked at him. Have a good night, officer, she said. Her voice had gone quiet. Flat. He walked away, smug. He had no idea that between his own body cam and her phone, everything was already documented. When she walked into the house that night, Samuel was sitting at the dining table, his tie loosened, paperwork spread out, laptop open. He looked up, saw her face, and stood immediately. Hey, he said softly, walking toward her. You're late. Everything okay? She set her bag down slowly, her shoulders stiff. Define okay, she said, dropping her keys into the bowl by the door. He frowned, catching the tone. What happened? She brushed past him, heading to the kitchen. He followed. Maya. She turned, and he saw it. The faint red mark on her arm, the tightness around her eyes, the way she was holding herself like she was made of glass. What happened? He repeated, voice suddenly rough. I got pulled over, she said. On Maple and 9th. He blinked, thrown. By who? I don't know his name, she said. White officer. Early 30s. Buzzcut. Attitude problem. He stiffened. There are a few that fit that description, he said carefully. Tell me what he did. She told him everything. The tone. The questions. The arm. The threat. His hands curled into fists at his sides. He put his hands on you, he said, voice low. He grabbed my arm, she said. Hard. For no reason except that I didn't just roll over. Did you tell him who you were? He asked. She looked at him, hurt flashing in her eyes. Why should I have to? She asked. Why should I have to say, hi, I'm the chief's wife. Please treat me like a human being. He exhaled sharply. That's not what I meant, he said. Maybe he would have backed off. She shook her head, a bitter laugh escaping. Oh, I'm sure he would have, she said. That's exactly the problem, Sam. He closed his eyes for a moment. Do you have anything? A plate number? Badge number? Name? I have more than that, she said quietly. She pulled out her phone, scrolled, and hit play. The kitchen filled with his voice. Step out of the car. Now, don't make me ask again. As they listened, Samuel's face changed. His jaw tightened. His eyes darkened. His shoulders squared. By the time the video reached the part where Derek grabbed her, Samuel's hands were shaking. He paused it, staring at the frozen image of his wife flinching under another man's hand. I'll handle it, he said. The words came out fast. Sharp. Automatic. But she stepped back, shaking her head. No, she said. That's the problem, too. He stared at her. What do you mean? If you handle it, she said, making air quotes, what does that look like? You pull him into your office, shut the door, yell at him, maybe put a note in his file. Tell him, don't you ever touch my wife again. He opened his mouth, then closed it, because that was Kind of exactly what he had been picturing. She kept going. And then what? What about the next woman? The one he pulls over who doesn't have a husband who's the chief. The one who doesn't know to record. The one who doesn't file a complaint because she thinks nothing will happen. That's not fair, he said, stung. You act like I don't care. I know you care, she said, voice softening. That's why I married you. But caring in private and changing things in public are not the same. He looked at her, eyes searching. What are you asking me to do? She took a breath. I want to file a complaint, she said. Like any other citizen. Through the official channels. No special treatment. No secret meetings. No backdoor deals. Then it'll go through internal affairs, he said. You know how long that can take. You know how messy it gets. There'll be pushback. The union. The politics. If they know it's you. They won't, at first, she said. I'll file under my own name, like anyone else. And you will not interfere. You will not warn anyone. You will not give anyone a heads up. He stared at her like she'd just asked him to cut off a limb. I'm not supposed to just sit back while someone lays hands on my wife, he said, voice rough. She stepped closer, touching his chest. I'm not asking you to be less of a husband, she said. I'm asking you to be the chief you promised you'd be. Not just for me. For everyone. He swallowed. You understand what this could do to the department, right? He said quietly. To morale. To me. She looked him dead in the eye. You understand what it does to people when nothing changes, she replied. He held her gaze for a long moment. Then he nodded. Once. Slowly. Okay, he said. File the complaint. And you'll stay out of it, she pressed. I'll recuse myself, he said. I'll turn it over to Captain Grant in internal affairs. And I won't warn him. Or anyone, she added. Or anyone, he agreed. She exhaled, relief and fear mixing in her chest. Thank you, she said. He pulled her into his arms then, holding her tight. I'm sorry, he whispered into her hair. I know, she whispered back. Just make it mean something. If you're still with me at this point, let me ask you something. What would you have done if you were in Samuel's position? Write it in the comments, because a lot of people talk about reform, but this is what it looks like up close, one choice at a time. 2 days later, rumors were already swirling in the Eastwood Police Department. You know how workplaces are. You can't sneeze without 3 people knowing before lunchtime. It started in internal affairs. Captain Olivia Grant, a black woman in her mid-40s with cropped hair and a stare that could peel paint off a wall, sat in her office reading a new citizen complaint. She'd seen hundreds, thousands, maybe, but this one made her pause. Complainant, Dr. Maya Harris, she read out loud. Her eyes flicked to the last name. Harris. Her jaw tensed. She kept reading. Pulled over without clear cause. Accused of DUI without evidence. Ordered out of the car. Arm grabbed. Threats implied. Attached. Phone video. She clicked play. By the end of the clip, she was leaning back in her chair, arms folded tightly across her chest. She closed her eyes for a second, gathering herself. Then she did what a good IA captain does. She picked up the phone and called the chief. Sam, she said when he answered. Olivia, he replied. You saw it. I did, she said. I need to know something before I go any further. I recuse myself, he said immediately. You have full authority. I won't interfere. This is your investigation. She was quiet for a moment. I was going to ask if you were okay, she said dryly. He let out a humorless laugh. No, he said. But that doesn't matter. Do your job. Live. I always do, she said. And I hope you understand. I can't treat this like any other complaint. I hope you don't, he said. I hope you treat it better. There was a pause. I'll be in touch, she said, hanging up. Then she pulled up Derek Cole's file. Her eyebrows went up as she scrolled. This one again, she murmured. She picked up the phone, hit a different extension. Sergeant Barker, she said when he answered. Send Officer Cole to my office. In the squad room, Derek was laughing, leaning back in his chair with his boots up on an empty desk. And then she starts telling me about potholes, he was saying to another officer, a younger guy named Miller. Like I haven't been driving those streets for years. Miller snorted. People always got excuses. Exactly, Derek said. You give them an inch, they step all over you. You got to set the tone early, you know? Make sure they know who's in charge. Across the room, Officer Lena Ruiz sat quietly at her own desk, pretending to type while she listened. Lena was in her late 20s, Latina, with dark curls pulled into a bun and eyes that missed nothing. She'd joined the force with a heart full of hope and a head full of warnings from her father. "Don't let them change you," he told her. "And if you see something wrong, don't forget you're still you." But over 3 years on the job, she'd already seen enough to know that if you see something, say something sounded a lot easier than it was. She'd watched officers shade the truth in reports. She'd heard jokes that weren't funny. She'd seen people like Derek escape by complaint after complaint because he's a good cop at heart, or we can't afford to lose another body on the street. She watched him now, boasting. "I almost hauled her in," he said. "But I figured, hey, why waste the time? Let her go sleep it off. I told her I was giving her a break." Miller laughed. "You're too generous, man." Lena's fingers tightened on the keyboard. Something about this didn't sit right with her. "Hey, Cole," she said, forcing her voice to sound casual. "You talking about that stop on Maple the other night?" He turned, grinning. "Yeah, you should have seen this lady. Thought she knew everything. Why am I being stopped? Officer. I was under the speed limit. Officer. Always the same script." "Did she blow?" Lena asked. "On the breathalyzer." He waved a hand. "Didn't bother," he said. "You can tell when someone's been drinking." She was combative, slurring a little. Lena's brows knit. "You wrote that in your report?" she asked. "Of course," he said. "Got to cover all the bases." She opened her mouth to say something, but at that moment, Sergeant Barker's voice boomed across the room. "Cole." Barker called. "Internal Affairs wants you. Now." The room went quiet for a second. Everyone knew IA calls were serious. Derek's grin faltered, then slid back into place. "Guess they heard I'm just too handsome for patrol," he joked weakly, standing up and grabbing his duty belt. As he walked past, Lena watched him, a knot forming in her stomach. "Be careful up there," Miller muttered. "They'll twist your words." Yeah, Derek said. "I know how to play it." He didn't know that this time. The game was different. Captain Grant didn't start with accusations. She started with questions. "Have a seat, Officer Cole," she said as he walked in. He sat, trying to keep his posture relaxed, his face neutral. "You know why you're here?" she asked. "Not exactly," he said. "Sergeant just told me IA wanted to see me." "There's been a complaint," she said bluntly, "from a citizen named Dr. Maya Harris. She says you pulled her over on Maple and 9th 2 nights ago. That you accused her of drunk driving without cause. That you grabbed her arm. That you threatened her with arrest to make her comply." He shrugged. "People file complaints all the time," he said. "I don't have a lot of control over that." She watched him. "Do you remember the stop?" she asked. "Yeah," he said. "Black SUV. Middle-aged black female. Acting nervous. Evasive. I observed signs of possible intoxication. I followed protocol." "You filed a report," she said, tapping the folder. "In it, you wrote that the driver was unsteady on her feet and slurring her speech." "That's correct," he said. "Did you administer a breathalyzer on scene?" she asked. "No," he said. "But like I said, you can usually tell." She held up a hand. "Not what I asked," she said. "You did not administer a breathalyzer." "No," he repeated, slightly irritated. "Did you have any dashcam or bodycam issues that night?" she asked. "No," he said. "Everything was working, as far as I know." She nodded slowly. "Good," she said. "Because we pulled your bodycam footage." His throat went dry. "There's one more thing," she added. "Dr. Harris submitted her own video from inside her vehicle. It appears to match your stop." He tried not to let the panic show on his face. With all due respect," he said, "people know how to edit videos these days. I'm sure if you give me a chance to explain." She fixed him with a cold stare. "You will have every opportunity to explain," she said, "after we review both recordings." She stood, walked over to the computer, and pressed play. And there he was, on the screen. His voice, his words, his body language, every flinch, every sneer, every unnecessary command, every power trip, preserved in high definition. He watched himself grab her arm. He watched her say, "You're hurting me." He watched himself hold on anyway. "I was giving her lawful orders," he said quickly, even as his stomach churned. Is that how you were trained to talk to citizens? Captain Grant asked quietly, eyes never leaving the screen. He swallowed. It was a tense situation, he said. I had to maintain control. She paused the video on the frame where his fingers dug into her arm. By physically grabbing a woman who was not resisting, who had already given you her license, and who was standing still where you told her to, she said. He shifted in his chair. With respect, it's easy to second-guess from behind a desk, he said. Out there, we make split-second decisions. She turned to face him fully. Officer Cole, this was not a split second, she said. This was a choice. Several choices. He opened his mouth again, but there was a knock at the door. Come in, she called. The door opened. In walked Chief Samuel Harris. Derek's heart leapt into his throat. He stood automatically. Chief, he said, relief flooding him for a split second. I was just explaining. Sit down, Officer Cole, Chief Harris said, his face like stone. Derek froze. Something was wrong. Chief, with all due respect, he said carefully, should you be here? I mean, if this is about. This is about a citizen complaint, Harris cut in. Captain Grant asked me to sit in on this portion of the review for transparency. I will not be involved in the final decision. Derek sank back into his chair. Captain Grant hit play again. They watched the rest in silence. The sarcasm, the threats, the final, quiet have a good night, officer, from Maya. When it ended, the room felt heavy. Is there anything you want to add? Captain Grant asked. He cleared his throat. With all due respect, he said, defaulting to the phrase like a shield, citizens don't always understand what it's like for us out there. They are scared, they are emotional, they misinterpret. Maybe she felt grabbed. But You wrote in your report that she was slurring and unsteady, Captain Grant interrupted. The video shows otherwise. That is a false statement in an official report. Do you deny that? I misremembered. Maybe, he said. It was late. I was tired. She also claims you told her not to file a complaint, Captain Grant continued. On the video, we can hear you say, don't go filing some fake complaint because you didn't like being told what to do. Do you deny that? He was breathing harder now. Look, you have to understand, he said desperately. There's a lot of people out there who lie on us. They file complaints to get out of consequences. I was just. And what consequences did she face? A voice cut in quietly. Chief Harris. Derek turned to him. Chief, What consequences? Officer Cole. Harris repeated, eyes locked on him. You did not cite her. You did not arrest her. You made her stand in the cold, threatened to drag out the night, grabbed her arm hard enough to leave marks, and then gave her a break, as if you were the hero. What consequences, exactly, did she have coming? Derek's mouth opened and closed like he'd been punched. This department has given you chances, Harris continued, voice low but lethal. We have talked to you. We have warned you. And still you go out into my city, wearing my badge, and you think you can talk to people like this. Put your hands on them for talking back. Chief, I wasn't trying to disrespect anyone, Derek said, his composure cracking. I was just doing my job the way I've always done it. The way everyone does it. You can't tell me I'm the only one. He stopped. The words hung there. Because that was the thing almost nobody said out loud. You're not just punishing me. You're punishing the whole culture. Chief Harris knew it. Captain Grant knew it. And Derek knew it. You're not on trial for everyone, Captain Grant said coolly. You're here for you. For your choices. For your pattern. For your actions toward a citizen named Dr. Maya Harris. He flinched at the name. Doctor, he repeated, grasping at anything. She never said. And she shouldn't have to, a new voice said. He turned. For the first time, he noticed there was another figure in the doorway. Maya. She stepped in, quiet but unshakable, closing the door gently behind her. Derek's blood ran cold. He lurched to his feet. He started. She requested to be present for this portion of the review, Captain Grant said. As is her right. Derek's eyes bounced between Maya and the chief. You're his, he said weakly. Wife, Maya said. Yes. The room went dead silent. If you've ever felt regret wash over you, that instant when all the bravado drains out and leaves you exposed, you know exactly what he felt right then. His knees almost buckled. I didn't know, he stammered. If I had known. Oh, I'm sure you would have behaved very differently if you had known, Maya said, voice steady. That's exactly the problem. If you believe people should be treated with basic respect even when they don't have power or status, hit that like button. Because this is where the mask really comes off. Derek sank back into the chair, color draining from his face. I'm sorry, he blurted out. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just doing my job. Was that your job too? Maya asked calmly, nodding toward the frozen frame of him grabbing her arm. Telling me not to file a complaint. Calling me combative because I asked a question. He swallowed. I deal with a lot of people who don't respect us, he said. Who lie, who try to manipulate. I didn't lie, she said. I gave you my license. I followed your instructions. I told you the truth about where I was coming from and what I do. You decided I was a problem before you even knew my name. He shook his head, clinging to the only thing he had left. It wasn't personal, he said. I'm like that with everyone. Chief Harris closed his eyes briefly. That is not the defense you think it is, he said quietly. Captain Grant looked at Maya. Dr. Harris, she said, you understand that this is an internal investigation. There will be a formal process. Union representation. Hearings. This is not the final word. I know, Maya said. Is there anything you want to say on the record? Grant asked. Maya took a breath. Yes, she said. She turned to Derek fully. You looked at me that night and saw a stereotype, she said. You saw angry black woman. DUI suspect. Problem. You didn't see a human being with a family, with a life, with a husband who wonders if you treat everyone this way. He opened his mouth, but she held up a hand. You should know, she added, that I work with teenagers who are terrified of you. Not you specifically. They don't know your name. But of men like you. Men who tell them to comply and then move the goalposts. Men who tell them they're getting a break, when really they're just getting spared from a punishment they never deserved. He stared at her, throat tight. I didn't, he started. You did, she said. On that video, you did. And the thing that scares me most is that you thought it was normal. You thought it was fine. You probably drove away feeling proud of yourself for keeping control. He looked down. He began, but the words wouldn't come. If I had told you that my husband was the chief, she continued, would you have let me go faster? Would you have spoken to me with respect? Would you have kept your hands to yourself? He didn't answer, because they all knew the truth. Yes, she said for him. You would have, because you respect the badge more than the person wearing the skin under it. Silence. Then Chief Harris spoke, voice rough. Dr. Harris, he said carefully, using her title deliberately. Maya, do you want to press criminal charges? For assault. For filing a false report. Derek's head snapped up. Chief, come on, he burst out. I said I was sorry. You know I'm not a bad cop. Do I? Harris asked sharply, turning on him. Because what I see on that video is exactly what I've been afraid of. A man who wears my uniform and thinks it gives him permission to bully people who can't fight back. Derek felt like the room was closing in. I've given 8 years to this department, he said. I've put my life on the line. And how many people have you scared on the side of the road in the process? Maya asked softly. He looked at her, and for the first time, he saw not just a complainant, not just the chief's wife, but an actual human being whose life he had impacted. Her eyes were tired. Not just from him. From all of it. If this had happened to one of your family members, she said, what would you want to happen next? He thought of his younger sister, who lived out of state, of his mom, who always told him to be careful. I don't know, he whispered. Then that's part of the problem, she said. Captain Grant cleared her throat. This investigation is ongoing, she said. Officer Cole, you are placed on administrative leave effective immediately, pending further review. Your badge and weapon, please. He stared at her, shocked. Leave, he echoed. Like, right now. Right now, she said. He looked to the chief for help. But Harris' face was unreadable. Slowly, Derek reached for his badge, unpinned it, and set it on the table. Then his gun. The weight he carried every day for 8 years left his belt. He suddenly felt small. We'll be in touch with next steps, Captain Grant said. You're dismissed. He stood, stumbling a little. As he reached the door, he hesitated. I really am sorry, he said, not even sure who he was talking to. To her, to the chief, to himself. Maya looked at him, really looked at him. I hope that one day, she said quietly, you're not just sorry you got caught. I hope you're sorry for the people you've hurt. He flinched like she'd slapped him. Then he left. When Derek walked back into the squad room to clear out his locker, conversations died mid-sentence. People tried to pretend they weren't staring. But you know how that goes. Sergeant Barker watched from the doorway of his office, arms folded. What happened? Miller whispered as Derek opened his locker, hands shaking slightly. Derek muttered. Some citizen complaint. Chief's making an example out of me. Suspension. Miller asked. Leave, Derek said. For now. Damn, someone murmured. Across the room, Lena sat, heart pounding. She thought of all the complaints she'd heard about Derek. The ones that went nowhere. She thought of the fear on people's faces when he approached a scene. She thought of her own silence, all the time she'd bitten her tongue. Hey, Cole, she said, standing. He turned, eyes wary. You okay? She asked. He barked a short, bitter laugh. Do I look okay? He said. She hesitated. What was the complaint about? She asked. Just another driver with a chip on her shoulder, he said. Thinks because she's married to somebody important she can cry police brutality whenever she wants. Lena stiffened. She's married to someone important, she repeated. He realized his mistake. Forget it, he said. Just watch your back. They're coming for all of us next. She watched him slam his locker shut and walk out, duffel bag over his shoulder, shoulders hunched. The chief's wife, she thought. It hit her then. Harris. Dr. Harris. Oh. The station was buzzing by midday. Did you hear? Cole messed with the chief's wife. No way. You sure? That's what IA is saying. Man, of all people to pick on. You could feel the shift. Some people were angry at Derek. Some were angry at the chief. Some were just scared. One officer muttered under his breath. So I guess it only matters when it happens to someone important. Lena heard that too, and she couldn't hear it. Maya hadn't wanted to post the video publicly. She wasn't chasing views. She wasn't chasing drama. She wanted accountability. But a week into the investigation, word leaked. It always does. Someone in the department talked to someone outside. Someone outside talked to a cousin. A cousin talked to a friend. A friend tweeted a vague reference. Hearing rumors that a certain Eastwood cop messed with the wrong woman. Eyes. Then, one of the mothers from her support group texted her. Dr. Harris, is it true what they are saying? That a cop grabbed you? Are you okay? Maya stayed at the message for a long time. She thought of the young men and women who watched the news and decided nothing ever changed. She thought of Samuel trying to navigate politics while his own house burned. She thought of the video on her phone. She opened her laptop. She recorded a short intro. Just her face. No makeup. Tired eyes. Hi, she said softly. My name is Dr. Maya Harris. Some of you know me from the center. Some of you don't know me at all. A week ago, I was pulled over by an Eastwood police officer. I wasn't going to share this publicly. I filed a complaint through the proper channels. But I keep hearing people say, no one listens to us. Nothing changes. So, I'm going to show you what happened to me. And I want you to remember that if this is how they treat the chief's wife, imagine how they treat the ones nobody knows. She attached the dashcam angle she'd requested through the complaint process, synced with her own phone footage. She blurred his name tag and face at first. Not for his sake, but to keep the focus on the behavior, not just the man. Then she posted it. The video spread fast. Group chats. Facebook. Instagram. Someone clipped the moment he grabbed her arm and put it on TikTok. Just doing my job. They wrote sarcastically. Inside the station, officers watched themselves become the talk of the town. In the break room, the TV replayed her video on the local news. Community psychologist and wife of Eastwood Police Chief Samuel Harris. Miller stayed at the screen. Damn, he murmured. Lena watched too, arms wrapped around herself. On the screen, you could hear Derek. Women like you are always looking for trouble. Something inside her snapped. She thought of her father, of her cousins, of herself. She walked out of the break room and headed straight for Captain Grant's office. She knocked. Come in, Grant called. Lena stepped in, shut the door behind her. Got a minute, Cap? She asked. Grant looked up, studying her. For you, Ruiz. Always, she said. Take a seat. Lena sat, hands clasped. I need to give a statement, she said. About Officer Cole. About a Patton. Grant raised an eyebrow. I'm listening, she said. Over the next few days, more stories trickled in. Nothing as dramatic as Maya's video. No smoking gun, but small things. The teenager who said Derek had called him boy under his breath. The store owner who said Derek always checked in a little too aggressively when black customers were inside. The woman who said she'd been pulled over 3 times in a month for rolling stops that never came with tickets, just questions. Inside Internal Affairs, Captain Grant's case file on Derek got thicker. Inside his home, Derek's world got smaller. He sat at his tiny kitchen table in his cramped apartment, staring at his phone as messages came in. Bro, you okay? Heard they did you dirty. You want me to put in a good word with the union rep? He ignored most of them. He scrolled to the video of himself someone had sent. He watched the angle from inside her car for the first time. Seeing himself from her perspective was different. He saw the way he leaned in, how his face looked under the harsh street lights. He looked mean. He remembered how powerful he'd felt in that moment. Now he just felt ashamed. But shame was tangled with anger, and anger was easier. This is out of control, he muttered to himself. They are making me the bad guy because she's the chief's wife. Anyone else, nobody would care. But he wasn't completely sure of that. Not anymore. He thought of a kid he'd stopped months ago. Skinny. 17, maybe. Cheeks still round. Hands shaking as he handed over his ID. Why are you so nervous? Derek had demanded. Because you're yelling, the kid had said. At the time, he'd laughed it off. Now, watching himself on screen, he remembered. He wondered how many people still heard his voice in their heads when they saw a patrol car. He put the phone down, pushed it away like it was poison. At home, things weren't easy either. Samuel couldn't walk into a meeting without someone bringing it up. Sam, we need to manage this narrative. Chief, the union is already asking questions. Chief, the officers are nervous. They think you're hanging them out to dry. He would come home late, tension in every muscle, and find Maya on the couch reading comments under her video. Some supportive, some hateful. Liar. Just looking for attention. Of course now it matters, because she's married to the chief. Where was this energy when it happened to regular people? One night, he came in, dropped his keys, and said, "Turn that off. Please." She looked up at him. "This is reality, Sam," she said. "Turning it off doesn't make it go away." He flopped down next to her, burying his face in his hands. "I know," he said. I feel like I'm getting it from every side. The community is asking why it took something happening to you to wake us up. The officers are asking why I didn't protect one of our own. The mayor wants it to go away quietly. And I'm still your husband." She softened, leaning against him. "I'm sorry," she said. "I never wanted to make your life harder." He snorted. "Oh, you definitely made my life harder," he said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "But maybe that's what it needed." She smiled sadly. "Do you regret that I posted the video?" she asked. He hesitated. "That's a trap question," he said. "I'm serious," she insisted. He sighed. "As your husband," he said slowly, "yes. I hate seeing you attacked online. I hate knowing strangers are dissecting your tone, your words, your expression. I hate that it's our private pain turned inside out." She nodded. "And as the chief?" she asked. He stayed at the ceiling. "As the chief," he said, "I know this was coming either way. We've been skating on thin ice for years. Your video just cracked it in the open. And maybe it needed to crack before we all drowned pretending everything was fine." She rested her head on his shoulder. "Do you still believe the badge can mean something good?" she asked softly. He was quiet for a long moment. "Yes," he said finally, "but only if the people wearing it are willing to be held accountable, even when it hurts. If you've ever been in a situation where doing the right thing made your life harder, not easier, you know exactly what they were feeling. Tell me in the comments. Have you ever had to choose between comfort and conscience?" A month after the video went up, after interviews and statements and union meetings, the formal hearing took place. It was held in the department's largest conference room. Long table, microphones, tension like static in the air. On one side sat the review board, 2 captains from different divisions, a civilian oversight representative, and Captain Grant. On the other side sat Derek, in a suit that didn't fit quite right, next to a union lawyer with tired eyes. Behind them, in the audience rows, officers filled the chairs. Some came out of curiosity, some out of solidarity, some because they were ordered to. Maya sat near the back, not wanting to be the center of attention in the room, but unable to stay away. Samuel sat beside her, not as the chief today, but as her husband. He had recused himself formally and would not be part of the board's decision. But he was there. The review board chair, Captain Monroe, cleared his throat. "We are here today to review the findings of internal affairs regarding Officer Derek Cole," he began. "This hearing will address allegations of misconduct, including use of unnecessary force, unprofessional conduct, and falsification of an official report." He laid out the facts, the complaints, the video, the contradictions in Derek's report. Then they called witnesses. Maya spoke first. She stood, hand steady, voice clay. She told them what happened. Nothing more, nothing less. She didn't embellish. She didn't dramatize. She didn't cry. She just told the truth. Then came other citizens with prior complaints. Their stories weren't as fully documented, but patterns emerged. Words repeated, rude, aggressive, intimidating, unnecessary. Then Lena was called. She walked to the front, heart pounding in her chest. "Officer Ruiz," Captain Monroe said, "you indicated you had information relevant to Officer Cole's conduct. Can you describe what you observed?" She nodded. "Yes, sir," she said. "I've been on several calls with Officer Cole over the last 3 years. I've seen him escalate situations with his tone when they could have been handled calmly. I've heard him call certain neighborhoods lost causes. I've heard comments that made me uncomfortable. And after the incident with Dr. Harris, I heard him brag about putting a woman in her place when she questioned him." There was a murmur in the room. Derek stared at her, betrayal written all over his face. "You're lying," he muttered under his breath. She heard it, but kept going. "I didn't come forward earlier because," she hesitated, then decided to be fully honest, "because I was scared. This is a culture where speaking up against another officer makes you a traitor. But watching that video, and knowing what I've heard him say, I couldn't stay quiet anymore." "Officer Ruiz," the union lawyer cut in, "are you aware that your accusations could end a fellow officer's career?" She met his gaze. "Yes," she said. "And I'm also aware that not saying anything could cost someone their life one day." The room went still. It was one of those lines that hangs in the air long after it's spoken. The lawyer tried to twist her words, to paint her as biased, ambitious, resentful. But her quiet conviction was harder to shake than his cross-examination. When it was Derek's turn to speak, he stood, gripping the edge of the table. "I've given years to this job," he said. "I've responded to calls where people were bleeding, screaming, drunk, high, dangerous. I've been spit on, cursed at, threatened. And now you're all ready to throw me away over one bad night? One video." "It's not just one night," Captain Grant said calmly. "It's a pattern. The video just shows us what the paper trail already suggested." He ignored her, eyes darting around the room. "To all of you who've worked with me," he said, voice rising, "you know I've had your backs. You know I show up. You know I don't hesitate. And now you're going to sit there and act like you've never raised your voice on a stop? Never put a hand on someone to get them to listen?" A few officers shifted in their seats, guilt flickering across faces. The civilian oversight rep, an older black man named Mr. Daniels, spoke up. "Son," he said gently, "this isn't about whether you've ever had a hard day on the job. This is about what you do with that authority when someone pushes your buttons, and whether you're willing to be honest about it when you mess up." Derek's shoulders slumped. For the first time, his anger sagged into something like regret. I didn't wake up that day thinking, I'm going to hurt someone," he said quietly. "But when she questioned me, it felt like, if I let it slide, I'd lose control. So I gripped harder. I pushed back. And his voice cracked, and I wrote the report in a way that made me look better." That was the closest he'd come to a full confession. The board went into private deliberation. The room hummed with whispers. In the back, Maya sat with her hands clasped, staring down at them. "Are you okay?" Samuel murmured. "No," she said honestly. "But I'm here." Finally, the board returned. Captain Monroe cleared his throat. "After reviewing the evidence, including bodycam footage, citizen-submitted video, previous complaints, and testimony from fellow officers and community members. He said, "This board finds that Officer Derek Cole engaged in conduct unbecoming of an officer, used unnecessary physical force, and knowingly falsified portions of an official report." You could hear a pin drop. As such, he continued, "we recommend termination of his employment with the Eastwood Police Department, effective immediately. Furthermore, we recommend that the district attorney review this case for possible criminal charges related to civil rights violations and falsification of official documents." Derek's head spun. "Termination," he whispered. "You're firing me." "Yes," Monroe said simply. The union lawyer leaned over, whispering, "We'll appeal. This isn't the end." But Derek barely heard him. His career, his identity, was crumbling in front of everyone. He looked around the room, desperate for a friendly face. He saw some sympathy, some gloating, some cold neutrality. He saw Elena looking at him with a strange mix of sadness and resolve. He saw, in the back, Maya looking at him not with hatred, but with a tired sorrow. He couldn't stand it. He stood abruptly and walked out. Nobody stopped him. You might think the story ends there, with a bad cop fired, the chief's wife vindicated, the station learning a lesson. But real life doesn't wrap up that neatly. Months passed. The community's anger didn't magically disappear. The mistrust didn't evaporate because one officer was removed. And inside the department, some officers grumbled about witch hunts and cancel culture. "Now we can't even raise our voices without worrying someone's filming," one said. "That's the point," Lena replied quietly. "Maybe we need to be worried." Chief Harris did something that surprised almost everyone. He asked Maya to help design a new training program. Not just another PowerPoint. Not another lecture. He wanted something real. She was hesitant at first. "You're asking me to go stand in front of a room full of people, some of whom think I ruined their friend's life," she said. "I'm asking you to help us not ruin anyone else's," he replied. So they built it together. Scenario-based training that put officers in the emotional shoes of the people they interacted with. Workshops where officers listened, not to experts, but to real residents telling real stories. Sessions about power, trauma, and what it means to carry a weapon and authority in places where people already feel unsafe. Some officers rolled their eyes. Some called in sick on training days. But others stayed. Lena stayed. She spoke up, openly, about her own fear of breaking the blue wall, and about why she chose to anyway. "I became a cop because I didn't want my community to be afraid every time they saw a cruiser," she told her colleagues. "But somewhere along the way, I got quiet. I watched things I shouldn't have watched without saying anything. I can't undo that. But I can decide who I'm going to be from now on." High honesty made it harder for others to hide behind denial. In one session, a young officer raised his hand. "What about us?" he asked. "What about when we're scared? When we're tired? When we feel like everyone hates us no matter what we do?" Maya nodded. "That's real," she said. "But your fear doesn't get to trample someone else's humanity. That's the job. If you can't hold that tension, this might not be the right word for you." It was harsh, but it was true. You might be wondering what happened to Derek. The DA did review his case. He ended up pleading to a lesser charge, tampering with public records, for the false statements in his report. He avoided jail time, but he paid fines, completed community service, and, most importantly, could no longer be a police officer. At first, he was angry. He spent months complaining to anyone who would listen. "They made me a scapegoat," he'd say. "They only fired me because she was the chief's wife. If it had been anyone else." But here's the thing. Sometimes, when you're forced to sit with your own life without the shield of a job, without the constant adrenaline, without the noise, the truth finally catches up to you. One day, he found himself parked outside the community center, staring at the building where Maya worked. He wasn't stalking her or anything like that. He wasn't allowed anywhere near her, legally. But he sat across the street, watching kids and parents go in and out. He thought of all the people whose names he didn't remember, but who probably remembered his. He thought of the words she'd said. "I hope one day you're not just sorry you got caught." He realized he was tired. Tired of defending himself. Tired of blaming everyone else. Tired of avoiding the mirror. He didn't become a hero. He didn't suddenly transform into a different person overnight. But he did something small. He started going to therapy. At first, He hated it. Sitting in a quiet room, talking about why he became a cop, about his father's temper, about the first time he felt powerful in a uniform, about the first time he crossed a line and no one called him on it, about how that felt like permission. Unraveling that wasn't easy, but it was a start. One day, months into it, his therapist asked, "If you could say anything to Dr. Harris now, what would you say?" He thought for a long time. "I'd tell her she was right," he said finally. "I respected the badge more than the people, and I didn't even realize it. I thought I was a good guy. Maybe that was the scariest part." He didn't send her a letter. He didn't deserve her time. But the change in him, however small, was part of the ripple effect of what happened that night. A year after the stop, the station looked the same from the outside. Same brick building, same flag, same faded parking lot lines. But inside, things were different. There was now a policy requiring bodycam footage to be reviewed randomly each month, not just when a complaint came in. Supervisors were trained to look for patterns, not just big incidents. Officers were required to spend a certain number of hours every quarter in community spaces out of uniform, just listening. No presentations, no defenses, just listening. Chief Harris instituted a clear, written disciplinary matrix for complaints. First offense, retraining and warning. Second offense, suspension. Third, termination. It wasn't perfect. Some people hated it, but it was something. Maya walked into the station one afternoon, not as the chief's wife, but as Dr. Harris, our training consultant. Officers nodded to her. Some avoided her eyes. Some smiled, a little awkwardly, but genuinely. In the squad room, she saw a new post on the wall. It wasn't glossy PR. It was simple. The badge as a tool, not a shield from accountability. She smiled a little. In a side office, she found Lena filling out paperwork. "Officer Ruiz," she said, knocking on the door frame. Lena looked up, then stood quickly. "Dr. Harris," she said. "Hi. Come in." Maya stepped in, closing the door behind her. "I wanted to say thank you," she said. Lena blinked. "For what?" "For speaking up," Maya said. "I know it wasn't easy." Lena shrugged, eyes dropping. "It felt like I was betraying my family," she admitted. "Maybe," Maya said. "Or maybe you were trying to heal it." Lena looked up, eyes shining slightly. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Posting the video, filing the complaint, all of it." Maya thought. "Yes," she said honestly. "And no, I regret that it had to be me. I regret that it took someone with my proximity to power to make a dent. But I don't regret holding people accountable for what they do with their power." Lena nodded slowly. "I'm trying to be better," she said. "To not look away. To not let stuff slide." "That's all any of us can do," Maya replied. "Try. Every day. With the power we have." So what's the lesson in all this? Is it just, don't mess with the chief's wife? No. That's the surface level, headline-grabbing version. The real lesson is deeper. It's about what happens when someone who's used to having unchecked power finally runs into a boundary that won't move. It's about how easy it is to justify small cruelties in the name of doing your job. It's about how institutions will protect their own, until the cost of doing so becomes greater than the cost of change. And it's about the courage it takes, on all sides, to say, "This is not who we say we are, and we're going to do something about it." Maya could have used her status to get a quiet apology and a promise it wouldn't happen again. She chose a harder path. Samuel could have shut it down, buried it, shielded his department at the expense of his integrity. He chose to let the truth cut where it needed to. Lena could have kept her head down, protected her career, and told herself someone else would speak up next time. She chose to break the silence. Even Derek, in his own flawed, late way, chose to look in the mirror instead of spending his whole life blaming everyone else. And you? If you're still listening, if you made it all the way to the end of this story, maybe you're asking yourself where you fit in. Maybe you've been on the receiving end of someone's uniform, someone's title, someone's just doing my job. Maybe you've been the one with power, making quick decisions, not always asking what they cost someone else. The truth is, most of us will never sit in an IA hearing or wear a badge. But all of us have power somewhere. In our homes, our workplaces, our relationships, in the way we talk to the cashier having a bad day, in the way we treat the people we think can't, do anything for us. The question is, what kind of person are you when nobody knows your last name? When you're not talking to the chief's wife? When you're just talking to a stranger in the dark on Maple 9th? Because that's who you really are. If you're still here, thank you for listening to this story. Tell me in the comments. Do you think Derek deserved a second chance on the force? Or was termination the right call? Have you ever had a moment where you realized you were using your power in the wrong way? If you believe people, no matter who they are, deserve respect and accountability from those in power, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you want more long, raw lifestyle stories like this, stories about justice, choices, and the cost of doing the right thing, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Because sometimes, the difference between corruption and character is what you do when you think no one's ever going to find out.